Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Welcome back to the Summer Blockbuster Movie Club, where every Friday I announce a summer blockbuster or just a blockbuster movie in general from the past that we are all going to watch together in the upcoming week. And then I also react to the movie from the previous week. And I'm having so much fun planning this out. I probably have 30 or 40 movies on my list right now that I would like to collectively watch this summer. Of course, we don't have that many Fridays this summer, but I'm having so much fun planning these movies out. And with each movie, it kind of reminds me of a certain era of my life or something that happened in my life, or I remember going to the movie and seeing it in the movie theater. It's really funny how with each movie that I'm picking, I remember specific little things about the time around that movie, or friends that I had when I went and saw that movie, or a memory attached to one of my parents, you know? And I think that I think that's the one thing about movies, right? Is it's not just the experience of watching the movie or dissecting the movie or, you know, being critical of the movie or, you know, whatever, our love of certain franchises versus others. I think a lot of it has to do with our memories attached to a time period when we were watching those movies, or memories that we have attached to those movies, or maybe the friendships, the family relationships that we had of people that we watched those movies with, you know? And last week, I picked the movie Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock's infamous Rear Window. Had so much fun watching it again this week. And, you know, I explained last week that one of the reasons why I picked that movie was because it was a movie that my mom and I originally watched. I remember the very first time we watched it, it was a very hot night, like in August, and we had all the windows cranked open, and went down at like 2 o'clock in the morning and made some peanut butter sandwiches. And I was very young when I watched that movie for the very first time. I mean, not like 4, but I was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or something like that. And my mom just loved old movies. She loved Alfred Hitchcock movies, and that gave me a love of the Alfred Hitchcock movies as well. And, you know, it was interesting watching it again this week. I hadn't seen it since my husband and I watched it, I think, a couple years ago, and it still scares me. It still scares me to this day. And I think that's the one thing about the power of film, you know? When you think about movies that evoke a certain emotion from you, whether that's sadness or fear or excitement or happiness, you know? And it's interesting, like, the movies that I think about that to this day, like, I could watch a clip from some movie and it would just make me feel a certain way. You know, I remember years and years and years ago, it was recommended to me that, like, to move through grief and to feel sadness, like, watch movies that make you feel really sad and or make you feel emotion whatsoever. And I remember that I watched The Color Purple, like the end scene of The Color Purple, when the two sisters are reunited, like, over and over and over again. Or I would watch the last scene from the movie My Dog Skip, and it would evoke some kind of emotion. And there are movies that make me happy. There are movies that I watch, like Bridesmaids. I could watch that movie, and I'm not a comedy lover, but I could watch Bridesmaids, you know, I probably have seen it over 100 times at this point, and still, like, you know, the bridal shop scene would just make me laugh out loud. And, you know, there's certain movies that evoke certain emotions. And I also think that when I've been looking at these movies, it's interesting. You know, last week I talked about Rear Window and how it brought up these memories that I had of my mom. And as I'm looking through each of these movies, you know, I was looking at Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it reminded me of this very brief friendship that I had with somebody when I looked it up, and it came out in 1981, which means I would have been 9 years old at that time. And I can remember going to see this movie, and this friend of mine that was actually the son of, like, one of my mom's friends wanted to be like Indiana Jones and, like, got one of those hats and stuff like that, you know? And I still remember that to this day. I'll be 53 next week, and I still remember, you know, 40 years ago, that memory. And I can remember, like, us going through the woods and doing these, like, adventure hunts like Indiana Jones. And so it's interesting how movies, like, evoke certain memories, you know? And certain movies that I've watched with friends of mine or my husband or family members still to this day, you know, like, bring up certain memories. I used to always spend New Year's Eve with my dad, and back in the day, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, back in the day, my dad was always on call my dad is a retired surgeon, and he was always on call for the ER on New Year's Eve. And so I can remember, so he would be up all night long, just waiting to get called in if he had to go. And so at that time, do you remember the movie channel that used to be around, like the cable channel, the movie channel? you could like call in and you could like vote for whichever movie you wanted them to show at midnight. And it was always like, there was like 3 options. And I think for like 2 or 3 years in a row, it was Dudley Moore and Arthur. And my dad loved that movie. To this day, my dad still like texts me little quotes from the movie Arthur. And I'll always like associate that movie with my dad. My dad and I would, you know, watch it and he would sing the song to me and things like that. So I think it's interesting when we think about movies, not just I love that movie or that's a good movie, but also maybe like the attachments that we have to it. I remember my girlfriends and I in high school, you know, we would get together in my dad's basement and we would watch all these horror movies and we would scare ourselves to death. And I can remember, you know, watching certain horror movies with them. And I can remember, you know, I had watched Halloween years before that, the original one with Jamie, well, a lot of them with Jamie Lee Curtis, but the original one with Jamie Lee Curtis. And I can remember to this day, like, things that my friends said, you know, and I remember watching it, and I remember watching Witches of Eastwick and the scene where they're all in the pool, and then we all went like night swimming that night. And anyway, so there's so many things that I remember from movies that have to do with memories. And that was the reason why I picked Rear Window last week. And in all honesty, I don't have a lot to say about Rear Window because it's to this day probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of life. I think it is so well done. I think that, I mean, what can you really say about one of Alfred Hitchcock's greatest movies, you know? It was funny because in my video last week, I said that Alfred Hitchcock puts himself in the beginning of almost every movie. And I said, if you look for him, if you want to find him, it's when Jimmy Stewart's looking across the apartment buildings and he's like walking across between 2 buildings and then he looks over at the camera. And somebody in the comment section said, I don't think Peter just gave us a hint. I think he told us exactly where it was, which I thought was kind of cute. So anyway, thank you for that comment. But I love the movie. And, you know, it's one of those movies to me, like To Kill a Mockingbird is my absolute favorite movie of life. It's probably, you know, I love the book by Harper Lee, but To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie, I love it so much, and it reminds me so much of my summers with my mom. My mom and I would watch it at the beginning of the summer, and we would watch it in the beginning of the fall every year, and it was also a movie that my dad and I watched a lot together, so I love To Kill a Mockingbird. It's just one of my favorite movies ever. It's a movie that I can watch over and over and over again. I read the book, or I listened to the book, by Sissy Spacek. She narrated it, and I wanted to listen to the narrated version by Sissy Spacek several years ago. And so I listened to it, and when I listened to it, I thought to myself, I did a reaction to it on my BookTube channel, and I thought, this will probably be the last time that I ever read the book. Like, I have read the book so many times, starting, I think, like in 6th grade, that I was like, I don't think I ever need to read this book again. But the movie, I still can watch the movie, and I love the soundtrack, and I have it, you know, in my phone, and I can just watch that movie over and over and over again. And that's, to me, the sign of a movie that has had a profound effect on me in my life. Not just what the movie is about, but the emotions that it evokes. Now, I will say that a lot of the movies that I'm picking this summer, some of them I have never seen. Some of the movies I have never seen. But today, I was going to pick Raiders of the Lost Ark, actually, today. And then I was, like, sitting here. It was a last-minute decision. I was sitting here, and I was like, isn't today the 50th anniversary of Jaws? Like, I believe today is the 50th anniversary of the release of Jaws. I have to tell you, okay, more than To Kill a Mockingbird, which if you watch any of my other channels, you know I talk about nonstop over there, more than To Kill a Mockingbird, more than any other film that I have ever seen in my entire life, Jaws has had the singular most profound effect on my life. Period. End of story. And it has been a movie that has been with me my entire life. And so I thought, so for last summer, I did a shark movie club, and we watched all kinds of shark movies, and we actually started off with the Jaws movies because I thought if we're going to do a shark movie club, you got to watch the canon movies, right? And so I wasn't going to include Jaws on this list of summer blockbusters when Jaws is probably one of the greatest summer blockbusters ever. So anyway, I wasn't going to include it on the list, but I was like, I think that because it's the 50th anniversary, we have to include Jaws on the list. Now, let me tell you my history with Jaws, okay? I saw Jaws for the very first time when I was very, very young. If it came out, I guess it came out in 1975, so I would have been 3 years old. I don't remember what I don't remember what age I actually saw it for the first time. But when I was growing up, I was so terrified of the movie Jaws. I thought it was so scary. I still do to this day. Any of them. Even Jaws 3, where the Jaws growls and it's stupid, and SeaWorld and stuff like that. Even Jaws 4, which is the worst Jaws movie in the franchise. To this day, Jaws still terrifies me. If you watch any of my videos, you know that my number one fear in life is sharks. I'm absolutely terrified of sharks. And it all stems from the movie Jaws. I can remember, like, my dad, like, wanting to get me out of the pool when I was a little kid, and I wouldn't want to get out of the pool because I was so excited. I just love to swim and stay. You know how important the pool is to me and all that kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't want to get out of the pool. And my dad would be like 10 o'clock, and the pool would be open in October. My dad would be like, nah, 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 nah. And I would be out of the pool like that quick. And then years later, there was this people always start sending me shark stuff. That scene, if you've ever seen the clip, I think it started in Texas somewhere, and now they do it everywhere, where people get inner tubes and they sit on a lake or a pond and they watch Jaws from the water. I've never done that. I don't think I could do it. I was thinking that maybe, when I came up with this idea right now, I was like, well, maybe my neighbor and I, because she and I go to the pool a lot at night, maybe we'll, like, hook up the iPad tonight and we'll watch Jaws from the pool from the iPad. But I don't even know that I could do that. But I was sitting here and I was like, you gotta pick Jaws. You have to. I mean, it's kind of a given. You know what I mean? You gotta pick Jaws. I looked it up, and there's actually not a lot of places that you can find Jaws for free online. You can watch it on Peacock with your subscription. It's free on Peacock. You can buy it on Amazon Prime for $3.79 or Apple TV for $3.99. It used to be a lot of places for free, but it's not anymore. So if you've never seen Jaws before, let me give you the synopsis of Jaws. And it came out in 1975, 50 years ago. Today was the release of Jaws. And thriller adventure, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Now, I have to tell you, okay, of the Jaws franchise, the 4 movies that are in Jaws, Jaws 1, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and Jaws 4, Jaws 2, where all the kids are on the boats, that is probably my absolute favorite. Jaws 2 is my favorite. Jaws 1, I think, is the scariest one. So let's read the synopsis really quick. When a young woman is killed by a shark while skinny dipping near the New England tourist town of Amity Island, Police Chief Martin Brody, Roy Scheider, played by Roy Scheider, wants to close the beaches, but Mayor Larry Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, overrules him. Fearing that the loss of tourist revenue will cripple the town, Matt Hooper, who is a scientist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and grizzled ship captain Quint, played by Robert Shaw, offered to help Brody capture the killer beast. And the trio engage in an epic battle of man versus nature. It's probably one of the most fantastic movies that I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen the documentaries. People are constantly sending me stuff. I feel like I have so many facts about the movie Jaws. The woman that plays the mother, I just read this, like, people keep on sending this to me, but I just read it again recently, but I saw it like 3 years ago. So there's a scene in Jaws where there's a little boy on a raft, and the shark comes and eats him, and the mom, like, she's sitting and she zooms in, and she's, like, screaming all over the beach. I can't remember what Mrs. Kittner, I think, is her name. But anyway, so the actress that played her was in this restaurant, right? So I can't even remember where it was. And she went in, and there was like a sandwich on the menu named after her son's character in the movie Jaws. And so she was telling the owner, or she was telling, like, the server, she was like, oh my God, I was in the movie. I played this person. I played Mrs. Kittner, or whatever her name is. And the owner happened to be the kid that played her son in the movie. And so they got reconnected. I know about Bruce the shark, the mechanical shark. I've read all the things. I've gone to Universal Studios. I have to tell you, I did that with my dad when I was in high school. And even that fake shark coming out of the water terrified me. It's a movie that never gets old. I will tell you, it's a movie you have to watch at night. You have to watch Jaws at night. You cannot watch it during the day. You have to watch Jaws at night. So for this week's Summer Blockbuster Movie Club, the pick is Jaws, because why not? It's the 50th anniversary, and I'm so excited. And this is what I'm going to ask, okay? If you're going to watch Jaws this weekend, put up a screenshot of it, a poster or something on my Instagram, like tag me on Instagram, Peter Monn, because I want to see who is watching it this weekend with me. You don't have to watch it tonight. This, you know, its 50th anniversary is today, but anytime in the next week you can watch it. If you do watch it in the next week, just put up a poster or put yourself watching or screenshot your TV screen and tag me in it, because I want to see who's watching Jaws this week. And then let me know in the comment section below if you guys are going to watch it as well. I've seen it so many times, and I was like, we're going to watch it again. We have to. It's the 50th anniversary. Anyway, let me know what you guys, what some other movies that you might like to see for the Summer Blockbuster Movie Club in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.